One Tree Hill, by the way, really helped break my career. I had a song on that show, so it'll always hold a really dear place in my heart. It made a big, big difference in my career. What has it been like in the entertainment industry? I've always been sort of surprised by this paradox, and I'm curious if you guys have seen this too. I feel like the arts are supposed to stick up for the underdog. We're supposed to really help give a voice to the voiceless. We're supposed to hopefully lead thought and culture and ideas that help liberate us, that help unify us. And I feel like in artists' hearts, that's how we are. It's how we're wired. And I've always been shocked that a lot of the gatekeepers in the industry aren't like that. It isn't a very pro-female business. It's not an easy business for women to be in. There's not a lot of people of color or different cultures that get leading roles. I always found it so paradoxical because I really thought it meant in the arts, everybody in the arts would be this way. But a lot of the gatekeepers create really toxic environments. This doesn't happen just in the arts. You know, when we have a toxic upbringing and we get the ability and chance to form a community, oftentimes it will repeat the cycle. But what have your guys' experiences been? And especially, you know, you as a woman, have you ever been surprised by the paradox of that? Not even to get into a Me Too discussion, but just, you know, what it's like being in this business.
I think especially with One Tree Hill, I mean, that was very, you know, Hillary Burton and I were vocal about our experience in Variety. And at the time, you know, it was the second television show I had done. So I didn't speak up about it. I didn't talk about it. I talked about it to him. Mm-hmm. He knew about it. He witnessed some of it. And it was just, and privately he said something to the person. But I think it's just always, for me, it was really great that it was brought to light and that we could start talking about it. But I don't really feel that a lot has changed personally. And I mean, yes, we've told our stories, but have we really moved on? Has that mentality changed, or was everyone like, yeah, sure, we'll deal with that. That's great. Let's write some articles about it and then move on. And I feel like, you know, we have to keep on it. And I like that you brought it up because we should keep talking about it. You know, it's why my girlfriends and I from One Tree Hill are still so very connected, because we went through that together as women. And the person that sought to tear us apart, all he did is make us so much closer. We probably would have never had that bond if he hadn't brought that. So
there is so much. I don't know why it exists in our industry. I'd be so curious if you have any thoughts. And if there's anybody like watching that has definitely experienced this, you know, I might be overly focused on my industry because it's the industry I know. But there really seems to be this very tolerated, very seedy behavior. And these people in power tend to just, they proliferate and nobody seems to mind it. I guess in reverse, I've also seen musicians with really bad behavior, artists with very bad behavior, and nobody disciplines them either, the managers and stuff.
But that's what it is. By the time you get to that powerful position, you've gotten there by being told yes and by being elevated, and no one sits there and says, you know, that thing you did yesterday on set, that was not you cool. Hurt a lot of people doing that. You really ought to reconsider the next time you use that voice or handle things like that. Is not happen. People just kind of go, oh, I didn't see that yesterday. You're fine. What do you mean? You didn't do anything. Just go.
Yeah, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of HR departments on a soundstage or in a studio, you know, and people, especially from an artist standpoint, they kind of get a pass, unfortunately. And you know, I've witnessed a lot of bad behavior from, you know, leads of shows or leads of movies, and people just kind of, you know, turn a blind eye to it. You know, I know this happens in every industry. I mean, you look at the news, you look at major corporations, you look at any industry, and this is rampant. I mean, look at you go back to, you know, the Mad Men days, and
right.
it's it's all over the place. But definitely speaking from my own experience as an actor in the entertainment industry, that kind of bad behavior does go unpunished quite often. And it's, I feel like it's gotten less and less because more people are now holding people accountable, or reputations are preceding them.
Right.
I think, 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, people just put up with that bad behavior. I think now it's like people just don't want to work with those people anymore, so they don't have to put up with it. So I feel like there's a little bit of a correction there in this day and age, but it's still there. The bad behavior is still around.
And it doesn't have to be a part of creativity. I mean, that's
No.
When people say that, oh no, they can't talk to anybody, they have to be locked in this room and they can't, their creative process. It's like, okay, but to me, creative process should never involve bad behavior.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, she worked on a movie, and I won't save names, but the lead actress would pull stunts, like move her chair outside and away from the other actors. And it was just like girls being mean to girls. And I'm like, what? How, and I'm like, what did you do? She's like, I just sat outside.
Yeah. I mean,
not gonna, just
not disturbing anybody's creative process.
Yeah. If that's what she needs to get her day, then that's, I guess, what we're all gonna do. And I'm like, gosh, that's unacceptable.
It is so weird that bad behavior would be so. I was really surprised. I got to do a movie with Ang Lee, and I'd never acted. I was completely inexperienced. I came from the music world, and nobody was looking at me. Like, nobody. I thought everybody hated me. And I remember somebody was like, oh, well, this crew had recently done a movie with a really famous pop singer, and you weren't allowed to look at her. And so they probably just assumed the same thing about you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I walked into craft service, which is where everybody eats their snacks. And I have a really dry sense of humor. And so I walked in and I was like, I thought I would just make a great big joke, and it would be this big icebreaker, and it would just kind of let us all know, So I walked in craft service. I threw up my hands. I'm like, everybody out. And when I looked around, everybody had left. Like, by the time, I got done with my dramatic, they thought I was serious. Like, they literally just left the room. I was like, oh shit, that backfired. Yeah. That really backfired on me. And it took a lot of work to try and understand, my word, these poor people have not been allowed to look something in the eye. And a lot of my co-stars were not nice. They would whisper horrible things in my ear, shocking, vulgar, really nasty on my close-up. And then they would go behind the camera and they'd say action. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, it was just sabotaging and strange. And
not witness that. That's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, there's, I've heard of production managers and stuff telling the crew, telling PAs and assistants and stuff to not engage with the talent, period.
Oh yeah.
And I found that out just talking to some of my PAs. I'm like, you didn't talk to me for the first several episodes you were working on the show. What was up? They're like, well, I just came from another show, and they were like, do not engage with the talent. I'm like, that sucks, because we're all doing this together. We're all, links in this chain trying to build a product. And
well, and everybody that goes into creating a film or creating an album, I mean, those people are all integral parts of what you're doing. I mean, you need, I don't know a lot about the sound guy.
The mixer. Yeah. You've got your mixer. You've got, you need all of these professionals. I can't do that.
And you want them to like you and your process and what you're creating. So when you have your final product, it's something that's, it's made by so many hands, and it's such a.
Yeah. And you can all celebrate in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.